take a deep breath with me. Deep breaths are important. So here we are, awake within a dream, lucid within a dream. Once we have realized that mortal consciousness isn't the bee's knees, once we realize that there is much more to this than meets the eye, once we realize that the offerings of this world pale in comparison to the offerings our own heart can instill our experience with, then we can no longer be steeped in ignorance. We can no longer be steeped in this attitude that only sees the mundane, only sees the day-to-day. We are in time, and time is a very trippy thing, because it pushes us forward and forces all within its grasp to change. Now, what quality shall that change be? That's the question. And that is the terror of being in time, of being incarnated.
We are born and pass through time in a process of growth and decay, only to step out of it all through death's doorway, at which point we confront the spiritual realm and our relationship to it in its purity, without the veil of matter. The great work prepares us to confront the doorway of death with ease and courage. In order to do so, we must be willing to treat this lifetime as an initiation.
We may wish to fall back into deep slumber and forget once again that this is a very meaningful experience, that it is designed for the evolution of the soul. We can choose to forget this or act stupid. But all that will do is make us more merged with mortal consciousness. In reality, we should be exchanging the known and the comfortable and the routine for the unknown. We need to take a journey into the void of ourselves so that the journey through time does not lead to a transformation that we might find ugly or monstrous, or not up to par with that true self that we know to be achievable. We achieve the true self by uncovering the true self. The true self is the inner child that we have chosen to lock away through agreeing to many mortal tendencies here. What are mortal tendencies? Well, first of all, mortal consciousness does not illuminate the intangible or the intrinsic magic of it all.
When we connect with and experience the universal sacredness that resides inside, the unifying energy of all, we touch the wisdom that sustains all of creation. Then, in comparison, the world of mortals, though we are still physically a part of it, no longer feels compatible. The world of inner experience becomes more valuable and vast than the world outside of us. Let us choose to inhabit a life that demonstrates divine consciousness. This is the truth we feel from the core of our being. These days, there's a lot of emphasis on my truth or your truth, the idea that truth is subjective. Indeed it is, but there are universal truths that we cannot hide from, such as we all suffer, and we suffer more when we forget this and try to avoid the suffering. All illusion we attach to makes us ill. All desires of the flesh do not and cannot fulfill. And this is a realm designed to lead a soul into liberation. These are all truths that are deep down known. But the veil of matter allows us to become confused, to ignore the voices from within that call for our freedom. It is this freedom which calls us to live a life focused on intimate divine realization. Mortal consciousness does not care about true freedom. It confuses slavery with freedom. Mortal consciousness is consumed with conflict, the dualities of right and wrong, domination, master-slave relationships, creating and sustaining drama and trauma, propelling and spreading belief systems, propelling and spreading fear, and being on one side of the argument or another. This is what mortal consciousness does. Mortal consciousness is focused on bodily and mental stimulation, attempting to derive pleasure from lustful pursuits, the distractions of entertainment and media, and an overall beast-like approach towards the material. This does not produce well-being. This produces a lot of confusion and a lot more suffering than would otherwise be experienced. Just because the world at large acts this way does not mean we have to fall into this immature, ignorant way of being. We can connect with divine consciousness. We have this phrase, full of yourself. When we say someone is full of themselves, it's usually a narcissistic accusation. But truly, to be full of yourself means to be so immersed in self-realization, so sustained by that realization, that there is such a reduced desire to fill one's cup with thrills and pleasures from the world of mortals. This mortal consciousness is not a demonic consciousness. It's simply what creation displays when many of its pieces are lost in the sauce of a false reality. This is simply what happens when we forget. We are, manifested a world that is so upside down. Divine consciousness, however, not being in forgetfulness, is full of itself. It is full of itself. It knows it is everything and nothing all at once. The true self knows the answers to the big questions of life, and knows that these big questions of life reside not in textbooks or in deep analysis, but in the beingness and presence that hides behind all illusion and delusion.
The many algorithms here which wish to bind themselves to us. The algorithm of grief, the algorithm of fear, the algorithm of anxiety. How do we get into these states? We get into these states through ignoring the intuition and conscience. When we ignore these crucial voices, it is the same thing as ignoring the voice of God. The voice of the divine speaks to us and through us using the territory of our mental and emotional sphere. Therefore, throughout this journey in time, if we want to make sure that we are not screwing our souls, if we want to make sure that the transformation is going to be a beautiful, wonderful one, then maybe, just maybe, we should learn how to take into account cause and effect. We can perform many actions within time, we can think many thoughts, we can say many things, we can agree to many contracts. And every time we perform anything, we are creating a cause. And knowing that time is simply a canvas to display the effects of our causes, knowing this can lead us to a kind of mindfulness in which we aren't being reckless and careless with our conduct. Why should we care? One may ask. I mean, this is just a crazy maze. It's bullshit, isn't it? I mean, it's so confusing. Why should we treat it with any kind of respect? Well, I feel you, oh devil's advocate voice. I feel you. If this is all a matrix, if this is a construct, and if the mortal world is here to show us how not to be, then what's the point of even being here? And I would say it's only as intimidating as our own inability or unwillingness to face ourselves. There are many uncomfortable things that need to be faced in order to elevate ourselves into a greater expanded consciousness. Everything in this world comes and goes. Even these bodies, they grow and they decay. Growth and decay is how this matrix operates. Therefore, there's no use in attaching to anything here. Everything will come and go. People, places, and cultures. You, your thoughts, your problems, etc., etc. But there is one thing that remains, and that is this immortal, infinite, adorable spark that we might call the soul. That is the driver, the conductor of this entire experience, conducting it simply to lead us back into itself. It's a game that's beyond our ability to analyze it in a reasonable way. So knowing there is one thing that never dies in a world in which everything dies, knowing this, we can carry out this experience in a very successful manner. How can we possibly allow ourselves to attach to anything or to anyone, knowing that it will all die. When we cling to our desires, to our expectations, to our projections of how the future should or should not be, inevitably, it blows up in our face. Eventually. That always happens, right? The harder we wish to push certain realities into actuality, the further from those realities we are. Isn't that interesting? Now, we can play many games here. I'm not saying meditate in a corner all day. All I am suggesting is that because our consciousness is immortal, and because almost everything else we deal with here is very mortal, or at least very subject to decay, there's no reason to give anything authority over us other than our own intuition, our own conscience, our own inner voice. At the end of the day, no matter what we've accomplished, no matter how much laughter we've had, no matter what we've done in this world, unless we sit well with our own minds and hearts at the end of the day, there shall be no peace and no true accomplishment. This world may tempt us to go after this or that, pursue glory, pursue rank or authority, pursue some kind of image. I don't know. Whatever it is, this world may tempt us to value that which does not make us feel valued at the end of the day. We may run and hide, we may wish to distract ourselves, but again, at the end of the day, we have one being, one entity, one force to face, and that force is not God. It's not this higher being. That higher being is actually the inner being, which definitely calls to us in disappointment when we don't live up to its standards. Knowing all of this, we can use this construct we call time in order to further and further connect with what is infinite, what is immortal, what is eternal, and what is full of true joy. Nothing in this world gives true joy. Nope. And that may feel disappointing to some of us, but that's just the reality. We're just passing through here. We're going through a process of relieving ourselves in many ways. We have to relieve the universal mind of many ugly or conflict-ridden traits. But after we've been there and done that, well, then it's time to embark on a quest that has nothing to do with anyone else but you. Is this narcissistic? No. No. We may wish to lord over others. That's what people are talking about when they're talking about narcissism. A true narcissist, in the psychological sense of the word, wishes to have victims and wishes to reign over others. When I say connect with yourself, when I say know that the all, the one, and the oneness of the all is intertwined with your own heart, when I say that in the most harmless sense. Know that all of creation has been designed for your upliftment, and therefore for the upliftment of all of creation. This is knowing the I am. This is knowing as within, so without. And living out the principle of as within, so without means all that can be experienced without first originates within. As we walk through this world, knowing each moment to be supremely designed for our evolution, we step further and further into a transcendent gnosis. We intimately encounter the divine in ways that religion has not even began to tell us about. Thank you for joining us. Keep up the great work.